Divine Wind, a blank page with the title and my name, and this is how the story starts. I believe this story should benefit from brevity. Now, one of the problems is I feel like half the time that I say that, I end up writing like a 4, 5, 6,000 word epic that takes me a couple hours on stream just to get done. But I feel pretty confident in the fact that it should be brief, this particular type of story. Whether I can actually achieve that or not is a secondary matter. So maybe that's either something I get right in the first draft or something I got to fix in the edits and the revisions. So let's jump right into this story and see what becomes of it. Hannah Winston was a soft woman married to a hard man. Almond was not an unkind man by nature, but he couldn't always live up to those ideals. Over the years, they both hardened. Farm life especially in that era of the Western United States and territories, was a hard life. So Hannah had to harden a little. Okay, let's spell little correctly while we're here. That shouldn't be too hard. She felt worse for her children. Life was not easy for them. And Hannah's warmth only went so far to thaw the coldness they got from their father and the realities of a harsh world. The open plains were beautiful, but that often covered over the dangers and the unforgiveness of the land. Where do I want to go with this? As the children grew up, married, and moved back east, they did not visit as often. Hannah sensed their love in letters, but sometimes love wasn't enough to bring people back to harsh land filled with hard memories and a father who didn't know how to show the kindness hidden in his heart. bitterness started to eat away at Hannah from the edges. All right. As they grew older, the work was only easier by degrees. Towns built up closer made sales easier when crops were good. Paved roads helped as much as they could. With age, Almond worked a little less, meaning Hannah, with the curse of good health, had to work more with her age. Often, those long, hard days out in the fields were a blessing of solitude. She did not come so far as to hate the man, but she appreciated her time away from him, even if the work threatened to break her back. All right. A storm was coming in, and she'd lived long enough to know that was nothing to take lightly. Still, she leaned on a rough wooden post strung with wire. As she bent her head into the wind, she thought she could still see stains from the blood off her knuckles the day they first strung this old fence. As the sky darkened into sinister threat, she kept her place in the whipping grass at the end of the ruts, the end of the wheel ruts. It picked up even more and pulled the fabric of her dress tight around her curves. she squinted into the dust, peppering her face, and was surprised not to see a funnel cutting its deadly course across the plains. If she let her imagination go, she could invent the image to go with these powerful winds. But this was something else. She had tarried for the coming of some other species of wind, let's say. The wires snapped first and whipped about with killing force. Maybe she was cut. Perhaps it was her own blood sprinkling her face, because rain shouldn't be that hot. The posts pulled free and lifted into the air, leaving deep pitted scars in the ground, normally held tight by the twisting roots of the grasses. Even the ground itself started to peel away in layers. She watched distant buildings rip apart into wooden flats as these twisted up into the sky. The boards and nails separated. Then those pieces broke up into splinters and dust. Hannah turned her head in time to see the roof of their house take flight as it exploded on the wind. She wondered if old Almond was in there with it. in the freedom of oblivion, she cast her arms out into the tearing winds as if to embrace the force of it. Her clothes, her skin, her bones, and her soul joined the debris as everything came apart. Alright, scene break, and here we go for some more. Alright, Hannah Felton sat across the table from Henry. He was a hard working man at a thankless job, but there were probably 100 more like him in the apartments above and below. Down the block, 1,000 more told the same story. 1,000 more told the same story. Across the city, countless others lived a template of the same life. This time, she had no children to worry about. Just their food, their roof, and their lives required tending. Part of her soul missed the children she never had in this life. The rest of her soul was taken up with the demands of just trying to get by. Street noise echoed up and through the single pane windows. The cold bled through with more intensity. The radiator cooked her. Hold on. The radiator cooked her on one side as the winter chill froze her from the other. It was that frozen side that looked across the table at poor old Henry. The glass shook with the first blasts of wind. The tinkling sound of either dirt or sleet sounded tapped the glass with the second rush of wind. Okay. Rush of the winds. All right. Moving right along here. As debris filled the view, even on this high floor, Hannah folded her arms and waited for what was to come. Lights blinked out across the city, and that darkness could easily have been an empty void for all she could see. Henry looked up, and his eyes went wide. He knocked over his coffee, which absorbed into the bottom fold of his newspaper. He looked to her back outside to her, and on the damage spreading through the city one last time. Do you know what's happening? She shrugged, even though he wasn't looking at her. It's out of our control, just like everything else. His eyes started to tear up, and she wondered if there had been more potential in him than she ever realized. Was that the same story in all these other apartments and buildings along all these darkening streets? Okay. It wasn't always bad, he said. She shook her head, with him still not looking. Not always. Never always. Alright. Glass shattered inward. Furniture lifted and spun away. The lights remained on for a surprising amount of time as the destruction spread. Brick and plaster folded away to a sheer drop on the windy street. Henry lifted and soared away into the dark sky. Maybe there was another life waiting for him. Hannah surrendered herself to the wind and allowed herself to be deconstructed with the building and the city. All right. Scene break. All right. Hannah Rift sat on the grimy couch in the center of a small trailer. The picture on their boxy television kept jumping, but she wasn't attuned to what was playing anyway. Simon was not a good guy. He was an angry drunk, and he wasn't a decent man when he was sober. He might have been at work that day, could have been out drinking, or might be rolling with some other woman, maybe in this very trailer park. Hannah was just happy he was gone. Let's not say happy, let's say satisfied. Satisfied he was gone. Alright. This trailer was smaller than their last, which was smaller than the house they squatted in, which was smaller than their last apartment, which was ever so much smaller than the dreams they had when she lied to herself about what she could be with a guy like Simon. As the winds started this time, she did not bother going out to greet the end. Oh, goodness, if you'll excuse me, it's gotten really hot in here. Okay. Sorry about that. Whew. Felt comfortable in the office. I guess I'm getting too hot with all the writing. As the wind started this time, she did not bother going out to greet the end. She heard the screams as the other structures around their lot lifted and tore away. Wooden porches snapped. Sheet metal rattled as it unraveled. Her trailer came apart in layers as the paneling broke away last. She found herself outside in the torrent of flying debris. Hannah lifted with the couch, but wanted so badly to be away from it that she pushed off in the air. Okay, let me do a new paragraph here. Instead of flying, she fell and closed her eyes as the ground rushed toward her to break her, as life always did. She seemed to fall forever without ever finding a place to land. Okay. Alright, I'm not sure how this metacognitive thing is going, but we got a final scene coming now. Hannah would be happy to melt into Carla's arms. Everything was fine. Life was not a series of disappointments punctuated by terrors or pain. Hannah knew what it was like to be loved and to spend her life loving back. Carla gave a hefty snore right next to Hannah's ear. She covered her mouth to stifle the laughter. It hurt her ribs to hold it in, but she didn't want to disturb Carla's sleep. All right. Eventually, Carla let go and rolled over. Eventually, Carla let go and rolled over. Hannah was tired, but not yet ready to sleep. She walked, let me put a new paragraph here. She walked out onto their patio as the sun set over the ocean. With her hands in her deep pockets and with her hands in her deep pockets. With her hands in her deep pockets and her feet bare, she crossed the thick grass and walked out on the stones over the water. Wind off the wind, let's say wind blew in over the crashing waves. It twisted and flipped her hair about her head in the dying light. It was not the tearing wind, not the winds of the end. So Hannah watched the sun extinguish itself into the sea. All right. She was not ready for the end. So she hoped those final winds held off for a little while longer.